And we're live. Hopefully the wind isn't too strong for you all this morning. But here we are. A nice, lovely morning. As always, well, I say lovely morning. The weather was a bit dramatic this morning, so I thought we'll hold off and see what happens. Because it was a bit rainy. I don't know if you can see in the background there. Oh, good morning there. I don't know if you can see in the background there. There's still some clouds hanging around, so this might be a depending on what happens today, this could be a shorter walk than normal today. Good morning to everyone that's joining us. See some people joining us. Oh, good morning for someone from Spain. Good morning to you. Good morning, one and all. Oh, who else has joined us? Looks better than here. It wasn't just a few moments ago. It was absolutely tipping it down. That's why, sorry for the later start than usual, but when it was like that this morning, I can't really do a lot about it, unfortunately. But that's when you decide to, do your streams outside. That's I suppose the risk you take. Good morning to Ben there. But as always, hopefully you can hear me. The wind's a bit buffeting today, about a bit stronger than normal. Hopefully my wind mic is doing its job well. So on to first things first, as always. Got to talk about America. Wind on mic but hearable. Excellent, that's what we like to hear. So, America. I'd have thought we'd have stopped talking about it, to be honest, but shenanigans continue across the pond. So, and to be honest, sometimes you just need, sometimes you need to look away from your own disaster and look at other people's disasters to get a little bit of comic relief. Oh, and someone from the US has joined us there. Prime Bird, good morning from the US. Yep, Trump can't do anything quietly, you are right. I think it was obvious to anyone that when he lost, he was going to make a big tantrum about it. No doubt you've all seen the the video of like a fake Trump and Pence in like a child's nursery, and Pence comes in to get him, and then all these kids are like playing with this big guy, and then as Trump says, "Come on, we've got to go," and then Trump starts throwing a tantrum. No doubt you've all seen that video. Yeah, Trump on the bouncy ball, that's it. So no doubt you've all seen that, and yeah, that's pretty much what we're seeing at the moment, essentially. So, what's going on in America? Well, first of all, everyone has to have seen at least clips, or at least some pictures of what can only be described as Rudy Giuliani pretty much melting during a 2-hour press conference. Oh, good morning to you, Paz. Good morning and welcome. Someone from Scotland joining us, always welcome. So Rudy Giuliani, literally, the best way to put it was melting down, almost like the Wicked Witch of the West during that press conference. It was unbelievable. But oh yeah, before we just go, some ponies for you all. There you go. So he was literally melting to a point where he was dabbing himself as he was going through his absolute, well, nonsense of the press news conference, talking about all these court cases. And by the way, I think they've managed to rack up 31 different cases, and they've all been thrown out, which just shows you how little evidence they've actually got. Now, lots of people are probably thinking, well, hang on, haven't they got all these, as Giuliani says, we've got all these signed affidavits from people who saw all this, you know, vote tampering and whatnot. Well, the reason why they're not submitting those is because if they were to submit those to a court, those don't count for anything, because they need evidence to actually back up what they're saying. So if they did that, all those people, all those Trump supporters and, quote, ballot watchers that were watching the vote would literally, I think they'd get immediately in trouble, because they'd get done for perjury, for lying, which would be incredibly funny, watching those people melt down in court, saying that they'd seen all this vote tampering but have no evidence to back it up. It gets even more funnier though, because in Michigan, I think it was the Michigan court case, they submitted data that was for, I think it was another state entirely, Wisconsin. So it was absolutely ridiculous. So they have no idea what they're doing, and it's getting to a point where it's just unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. But this is going to not stop anytime soon, of course. And of course, you have all the Trump supporters adamant that you know, the election has been stolen, and I worry this might lead to. I worry that someone's going to do something stupid on that end, to be honest. I really do. Oh, got some nice greyhounds. But I hope they don't. I hope that it's more bluster than. Oh, hope it's more bluster than actual them following through on their threats, to be honest. Hopefully they'll be too slow on their rascals to actually do anything serious. But the other big news we've had from America is that Georgia got recounted. And it's official. Biden won Georgia. And as we've been saying for the past couple of weeks on these morning walks, this has easily been the biggest news we've had. Now, pre-election night, I was saying that it was very likely that Texas was going to be the state that flipped. But it didn't. It turned out to be Georgia. And this is because of the absolutely sterling work that progressives and lefties have done on the ground in that state to get people out and voting. So, to all the people who often say that this old style canvassing doesn't work, I point to them Georgia, a state that is always and has been traditionally red, and I think has gone blue for the first time in decades. And if the Democrats are serious about winning future elections, they need to replicate that exact action in other red states as well. Because if they can mobilize all those other people in those states, then they will absolutely be able to take Texas, potentially even take Florida, And if they just do that, those two red states flipping blue, even just by a small margin, will often mean that essentially the Republicans might never be able to win the presidency again. If the Democrats get serious and take on board the lessons of Georgia and what was done on the ground there to mobilize people to get out and go and vote for the Democrats. So it is possible, but again, we'll just have to see if they can actually learn from that election. Yeah, demographics. Well, you see FSM, sorry, I can't see your name there, sorry, the sun's a bit in the way. You see FSM, this year is actually another important year because it's also a year for redistricting. And if the Democrats hold the House, they can redistrict in their favour. So hopefully they do that. Now, of course, we've still got to keep eyes on the Senate, and indeed in, I think it's, which state is it? They're waiting. There's literally 2 Senate seats left in a runoff. And if the Democrats win these 2 Senate seats, essentially they end up holding the Senate. Only by a very slim majority, mind you. Georgia, that's it. So hopefully the Democrats can win the Senate as well. Oh, good morning from Austria. Good morning to you. Welcome on the morning walk. So that's where America is at the moment. Of course, Trump continues to not concede, even though people have reported that he nearly conceded. He came this close to conceding, but he actually didn't. We'll just have to see what happens. But the other funny thing is that Murdoch and Fox News appear to have completely abandoned Trump. And when that happens, that can be a serious move. A serious move. And will be a serious blow to Trump. But no doubt if you've been keeping tabs on America, you'll know that Trump is going to launch his own Fox News style channel called Trump TV, which will be hilarious. There you go. The other thing that's also funny that's quite happened, many of you will know, or may not know, there's a very infamous Fox News anchor called Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson has essentially fallen out with the Trump campaign. And essentially it's not surprising, really, because when it comes down to loyalties, Tucker was never, ever loyal to Trump. He was loyal to one person and one person only, and that was Rupert Murdoch. He takes his marching orders from him and does what he says. So now Fox News is on the Trump climb down, which is going to be quite funny because this is like the main Republican TV channel and has been pretty much the Trump cheerleader for Trump for the past, well, since he started running, really. And we have, there's going to be some funny stuff. Like, you already saw yesterday on Twitter, if you look up Tucker on Twitter, you'll see that a load of Trump supporters are already calling Tucker a traitor, which is quite funny because you've only got to consider just days ago, all these Trump supporters were begging Tucker Carlson to run for president. You know? So you can just see how quickly the coin has just flipped on Trump. And there is no appetite for keeping Trump in power. And as someone just said there, you are right, it is a complete pantomime. But, you know, it is quite funny to watch. Like I say, we have our own situation going on here at the moment. And as Paz has just said there, this is just proving how hollow populism really is. Populism always is, you know, simple ideas proposed to complex problems. And the problem is, there never ever really is a simple solution to complex problems. And that's what many people on the far right and the populist right seem to postulate to these solutions. For example, Priti Patel proposing the solution that we somehow catch migrants with nets. Simple solution to a very complex problem. And of course, I think this brings us roundly onto British issues, because that's really the only news really from America on that front. So still interesting times ahead for America. I can't wait for Trump's concession speech, because there will have to be one sooner or later. He is going to have to just acknowledge reality, just like our own Prime Minister, because David Frost came out this week and said that Boris had to be prepared to sign a deal as soon as this coming Tuesday. So the question we have to ask, as always, will there be a deal this Tuesday? As always, it's a 50-50 flip of the coin. At the moment, we know that one of the EU negotiators tested positive for COVID, so potentially the talks could be put on hold. This also means that even that deal could be put on hold. So the likelihood of it happening on Tuesday, again, we'll just have to see. But it does come down to what type of deal we're going to get, because we don't know what type of deal we're going to get. Until we know that, you know, just like the Japan deal, we've been constantly looking at the Japan deal for weeks and weeks and weeks, and constantly, the more people have looked at it, the more we've come to analyse just how bad the Japan deal actually is. You know, it doesn't cover a lot of, you know, important sectors that we need. Investment has been completely ignored. Japan is like the second biggest investor in the UK, and it's been completely ignored. And yet, this is the deal that Liz Truss and the Brexiteers have been touting how fantastic it is. And yet, the more you look at it, the worse it is to the very same deal when you compare it to the EU deal, Japan deal. Their deal is far superior to the one that we've just signed. But of course, we've got to go back to the issue at hand. What deal is it that we're going to get? And ultimately, this is going to be a skinny deal. So what do we mean by when we say skinny deal? Because I don't know if a lot of people watching may know just what this, use the term skinny deal. This means that hang on a second. There we go. This means that the deal that we could get is only going to be targeted at very specific sectors, very specific products that go to and from the EU. This means that potentially lots of industries and, you know, big ticket items might be completely ignored and missed off from this trade deal, which will have huge impacts to our economy. Now, we don't know what sectors are going to be in the deal and what sectors are going to be left out. It's very possible that we could see things like maybe manufacturing, maybe cars would almost certainly be in, but it's very difficult to say what other stuff is going to be in, because the Brexiteers are adamant, as they've been saying recently over the past couple of weeks, that if Boris Johnson signs a deal that essentially leaves under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, then essentially they were saying, if that happens, what was the point of Brexit? To which I say, oh, the penny has finally dropped. That is going to be fantastic when we hear Brexiteers start to say that en masse. And we are unfortunately in a situation where we're just going to have to wait and see, because we don't know what is going to be in the deal. We don't know what is not going to be in the deal. We're just going to have to wait and see. We've also heard news from Number 10 itself that Boris Johnson does not want to budge most on this deal. Now, with Cummings gone, the person who even Nigel Farage has come out and said that he now worries for Brexit now that Farage is gone, we have to be looking at, one of the reasons why Cummings went was because he saw the writing on the wall, and essentially the climb down, possibly the eye-watering climb down, that Boris Johnson is going to have to do to not only save the British economy for the sake of forgoing Brexit. So the question is, as we've always said, Boris Johnson has put himself in a very unique position that no matter what type of deal he does, whether he does a deal or whether he does no deal, he has to, in one way or another, betray someone. And that question is, who does he betray, and just to what degree does this betrayal take the form of? And as for Farage, well, we know Farage is coming out. We know that, for example, there are now well more ERG type groups that are forming in the Conservative Party. The group that has always was known as the party within the party now has competition. So these groups will be at odds with each other as well as to what type of deal there is. And we just have to wait and see what happens. Because Boris can't please everyone, and he has to upset someone. And no matter who he upsets, it will be very upsetting for that group. But we also know the writing's on the wall as well, that Boris is not long for the PM's office. As I've often said, he's going to do his George Bush impersonation, come out in front of Downing Street and go, "Mission accomplished, lads, job's done." And then that will trigger another Tory election, to which I highly suspect it will be Michael Gove who takes his place. I don't think there's any other Tory at the moment who could do that. I don't think there's another Tory that has the the clout in the party at the moment. Sunak did, but I think that, shall we say, with more coming budgets, Sunak is going to find himself very, very unpopular in the party very, very quickly. So, just as at one point Sunak had, well, become essentially the challenger to Boris Johnson, to which I would have said, if you were to put money on Rishi Sunak being the next PM, I wouldn't have disagreed with you. It would have been good money called. You know, I'd have probably maybe have even hedged my bets, put a bit on Grove, put a bit on Rishi. But yeah, we will see a definitely. This may not even be a Boris leaving. It could be a challenge. If the deal does not go in one of these groups' favours, they may challenge Boris for leadership in that group. It's possible, but we'll just have to see what the betrayal is that Boris does, and just how much sense there is for essentially going after him, essentially. We're just going to have to see. Hold on. I can finally actually see the comments now we're here. Son of the Viking did put one. So, the deal will be a revised version of the original political protocol, this time with Britain's commitment to a level playing field and the arbitration as binding. Yeah, it's very likely that will be what will happen, because Boris is going to have to come to a come down. Even David Frost, his own negotiator, wrote back in 2016 that Britain was going to have to essentially capitulate to whatever the EU wanted. They are the larger partner in this trade deal. And one of the things we've often said was that Britain is going to find itself in a position where it's crowing about, I don't know, its power, its trading power and its heritage. And essentially it's not going to happen. And, you know, these bigger countries, these bigger and better economies are just going to have far more leverage over us than us, essentially. And it's going to result in just horrendous deal after horrendous deal after horrendous deal. And make no mistake, just like with the Japan deal that we mentioned just a few moments ago, where constantly, you know, the economists are looking over the deal and just going, this doesn't benefit the UK at all. You know, we've gone over the soy sauce debacle. And then, I think it was last week, this deal benefits Japanese exporters by about 87% compared to British exporters, where it benefits them by just 17%. You know, this is it. This is, you know, this is apparently what you voted for, guys. These absolutely terrible deals. Yes, 87%. That's how much it benefits Japanese exporters, just compared to the 17% of British exporters. So it's not done anything for them. Oh yes, and of course we can't forget the Stilton that Liz Truss put in there, which is even more embarrassing, because according to the deal, essentially Britain will be left to fill the quota of what is left over from the EU. So essentially, if you're a cheese exporter, well, a hard cheese is what the proper term for the cheese is called. If you're a cheese exporter to Japan, some years the export tariff will be low, other years the export tariff will be higher. Why? Because it entirely depends on how much cheese the EU decides to export to Japan that particular year. So essentially, your export market will completely fluctuate from year to year. That is not a stable market to export to. And not only that, that means that your prices on the shelf in Japan will fluctuate. Not only that, but the cost of exporting to Japan, because this isn't, it's cheese. This is a product that has a shelf life, and it's got what? I think it's 6 weeks to Japan by container, something like that. And not just a normal container, we're talking a freezer container as well. So that's extra money on top of that. It's insane. And any, shall we say, other hard cheese exporter in that region, from China, Australia, New Zealand, is going to have a significant advantage over any British brand, because it's far better and cheaper for a customer, and this is what it often comes down to, a customer buying that cheese. It's cheaper for them to buy the Australian brand. They may prefer the British brand, but quite frankly, it's just, it's too expensive. And, they developed a taste for the Australian brand as well. Is there any pros to Brexit at all? Nope. This is what we've been saying for years, my friend. And we've just continued to, essentially be ignored. Oh, hang on. So who is this? Rumpelstiltskin. So, given the hubris surrounding Brexit, do you think the UK is in need of a bit of national humiliation, something akin to the Suez Crisis? Yes, I think that will happen. Something will happen sooner or later. I think it will be this EU deal, and I think it's going to be announced to a big fanfare, a big song and dance, and then people are going to start going through the deal with a fine-tooth comb, and just come to the realization of, what on earth have we signed? What on earth have we just done? You had last week top business groups from the CIB, all the way through pretty much every sector, telling Boris that they needed a deal. And I wish, if you saw what Lurpak did, Lurpak actually came out and fact-checked the British Environmental Minister after his comments he did on the Andrew Marr show, where they said that Lurpak would have to move some of its manufacturing to the UK. He said it would be wonderful because this will bring jobs here, and that they'll not be the only European country to to move jobs here. Well, Lurpak responded and just turned around and just said, no, essentially. We won't be moving manufacture to the UK. And you can take that as pretty much a gospel statement, because this came directly from Lurpak itself. So even they're not interested in moving any business or production to the UK post-Brexit, which is apparently one of the big things that we were told. So, David Hollis, sad to say, said to an sorry, let's start that again. Said to an hang on, moved. Said to an Austrian friend that we and the USA had to come, not experience populism, authoritarianism in the last 200 years. This will be a necessary national disaster that we have to go through. Yeah, it will be. In fact, the coronavirus has just proved, if you look at all the countries that have elected a populist leader, they've all done incredibly bad. Not only that, but you've got to look at the situation in Poland, where for essentially, I think it's the last 3 weeks, there have been non-stop protests about essentially a court essentially ruling out abortion. And that's their populist party in power there. And they are facing immense pressure to do stuff. In fact, I must cover that at some point on the channel, because I think it's very important to cover. But someone else had a question there as well. So, Andy in Germany. If the EU deal turns out to be bad, i.e. humiliating for the UK, and then all that will happen is that the populists will turn around and blame the EU for everything to hurt the UK. They may even want this. Yeah, they may do. But they were always going to blame the EU regardless. Something they would always find the EU to blame for something, even when we're not in the EU. And what would be so funny, starting from next year, we will see the effects of just what is going to go happening going on. But yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous, but this is it. And as someone there, this will be a moment, I think. This will be the climb down that we've often talked about, this eye-watering climb down that Boris is going to have to do. And that means he's going to have to betray someone, and that will cause trouble, not only for him, but whoever is the next Prime Minister. Because we've even got Michael Gove reportedly saying that Boris needs to just do a deal. So even Michael Gove, a committed Brexiteer, is saying that we have to get a deal done. So let's say no deal happened. Let's say Boris was stubborn, as the reports coming out of Downing Street are, and that he just doesn't move on this. He'll come out and say, congratulations guys, mission accomplished, job done. Oh, by the way, I'm leaving. Let the next Tory leader in and do this to lead the UK to its brighter future, whatever. Michael Gove gets in, and I don't think, even if it is Michael Gove that doesn't get in, whichever Tory takes over from Boris, their first port of call will be to the EU to start negotiations for another free trade agreement. And they will have to give in some way or some shape or form, because we've covered this from an economic viewpoint, even just from a business standpoint. Brexit just doesn't make sense. And that's the real crux of the matter. From the word go, no other country has understood why on earth we are doing Brexit. Except for Donald Trump, who was just like, he's an idiot, so, To him, it was just another part of the populist wave that he was experiencing. Oh yeah, I have no doubt that Boris wants Trump to win. I have no doubt in my mind at all that's what he wanted, and that was his preferred outcome. Because then he was hoping that, well, essentially Boris would, or Trump would, do him a good, sweetheart deal. Because as we've said before, this is the this is what the Brexiteers often talked about, them wanting to get this deal from America, which was somehow going to save the UK. America would come in at the last hour, do this fantastic deal, and oh look, Brexit was worth it. We got this fantastic deal. That was one of the pillars that Brexit built on. Oh yeah, a lot of these guys there, David, would be very happy with, including Jacob Rees-Mogg, would be very happy with a no deal. Because we are going to see economic damage to this country that we have not seen for generations. And this is just going to open the doors to disaster capitalism. So if you don't know what that is, go give it a Google and you can see for yourself. Well, not just yourself, but we will be able to see the exact effects on it. Oh, Callum there. What do you think about the allegations against Priti Patel? Yeah, I think it sums it up really. That you had the guy who did the report that said Patel was in the wrong, and that she clearly did not follow the ministerial code, which is pretty much strong language for we investigated her, and yes, turns out the claims were true. There was bullying, she was bullying her ministerial colleagues, and this was doing damage to her internal reputation. And to no surprise, what happened? Boris Johnson turns around and just goes, oh, then Patel did nothing wrong. So essentially, the government investigated itself, found that it did something wrong, and then said, oh, we did nothing wrong at all. But this is just Johnson not wanting to shift his cabinet. A lot of people, since Cummings has gone, they've talked a great deal about the Great Reset, because we've got Boris back. Of course, what that means is, as we said in the video this week, that Tsar Boris being released from the clutches of Rasputin Cummings, the power was now up for grabs. And, well, quite frankly, it's a battle now for Boris. Who takes control? Who becomes the man behind the curtain? Who is the great and powerful Oz? And we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But a lot of people are hoping that they can take control of Boris. And of course, what they mean by this, of course, is they're referring to Boris when he was mayor of London. And if you look at Boris's track record when he was mayor of London, he didn't do any work while he was there. He used it more as a position of prestige, just like, Prime Minister position, and essentially let others do the work, which is why Dominic Cummings had so much power in number 10. And you know, this is not a defect. This is his character flaw. You know, we said in the video about it, it's very, very reminiscent of when you read about the George Bush years of, you know, Colin Powell and Dick Cheney would always make sure that they were the last people in the room because they know that's what Bush would listen to. Turns out it's exactly the same for Boris as well. Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me at all. But you've got a lot of people now clamouring for, as we said before, this great reset. This was going to be the incredible reset button that they were going to press, because the Tory party just this year has damaged itself to such a degree with just continuing just bad governance after bad governance and governing themselves into a quagmire that they can't govern themselves out of. That if there was an election next year, they would probably lose in a landslide. And this is going to stick with them for some time to come. These issues will come up at the next general election. Yep, Bozo meets his Waterloo just has made it. Or, continuing with the Tsar example, his death squad, shall we say. It just have to see who pulls the trigger on Boris, because he's going to have to upset someone. And as we said, Tuesday could be the day we hear about the deal. It may not be. Obviously, with one of the EU negotiators testing positive for COVID, that's obviously stalled talks a bit, so the Tuesday pronouncement may be wrong now. But we'll have to wait and see. Unfortunately, we are in that situation of the UK has been in a holding pattern for the past 4 years, and the fuel is about to run out. It's just a question of what's going to break first, the aeroplane or the pilot. Because the EU, in this scenario, in this analogy, so we say, is the landing strip, and they ain't going anywhere. So we're halfway around now. So please do hit that like button. There's about, there's 145 viewers at the moment. So do remember to hit that like button. It does help out the channel massively. So hit that button. And of course, if you would like to support the channel a different way, I do have a Patreon page and a one-off donation link down below in the links, should you like to support the channel that way. And thank you very much to the people that do support me. Your support is very much appreciated. And in a couple of days' time, I'm going to be doing a video on my Patreon page to my patrons, because I've talked about what plans I have for this channel. So I'm going to be doing a video specifically to my patrons about what the plan I have and the future and what I want to turn this channel into going forward. And I won't be able to do it without your help. So thank you if you do decide to support me, even if it's just a one-off donation. Thank you very much. Every little helps, as they say. And now, question and answer time. So, sorry for a tardy arrival there. I'll be a red X against you and see me after class, Calvin. So, I've talked about this before, but it's annoying when you come to Brexit, because the very often people ask is, what will happen if we get a deal? What will happen if we don't get a deal? And just what will happen to the future of Brexit Britain? And it's very hard to do, to be honest, because you've really got to crystal ball gaze, and it is very much guessings on the actions and reactions that people will do, and you've got to really get down to the nitty-gritty of, well, Jacob Rees-Mogg might do this because in his past actions he's done this, this and this. So that's what you've got to really do. And of course, the main problem has always been is that Brexit has no policies. It's got no, the Brexiteers have not come forward and said, we're going to pass this bill that does X, Y, and Z to essentially secure Britain's future. The Brexiteers have never ever done anything like that. And as even Nigel Farage said himself during an interview, a couple of years ago, he never released a roadmap because he said that was the mistake that the Scottish Nationalists did at their last election, at their independence vote. And you're like, whoa. If you're going to do something as important as leave the European Union, or even in this case, if you're Scottish and you want to leave the United Kingdom, then you'd think as a potential voter that you would care about what it is this potential future government wants to do with your country. I call that a pretty important thing. So it's the same thing of, as someone's just said it there actually. There is a plan, but I won't tell you. But believe me, that's it. It's the con men talking. And that's what we've seen throughout all these 4 years of just, shifting positions. It's bizarre to think that you can go back to the referendum and, hopefully you can hear me, it's a bit windy. It's bizarre to think that 4 years ago, there's clips. There we go. I'm presuming you can still hear me, even though with the wind it's a bit buffety. But yeah, Farage and the Brexiteers were just snake oil salesmen, and they promised things they just can't deliver on. This is why when you talk to a lot of Brexit supporters, they often talk about getting their country back and being promised a better future. And this is what's not going to happen for them, because the Brexiteers were just, a bunch of con men. And when Brexit happens, it's going to be a disaster. Just this week, we reported about Portsmouth Town Council, a Conservative-controlled group who runs and owns the port in Portsmouth. And you have the mayor and the leader of the council saying we desperately need money for what is going to happen. We're not ready. It's going to be an absolute disaster for them. And not only that, but we've talked before, one of the biggest points of export from Yorkshire really to Europe is either you take your stuff to Newcastle or you take it to Hull. Those being the two closest ports if you're a manufacturer that does business with Europe. And I don't know if any of you have ever had the pleasure of visiting Hull, but if you go through the city centre, you will constantly see big HGV lorries headed to the port, because to get to the port in Hull you have to go through the city centre. And now picture this: a lorry does not have its necessary paperwork to pass through customs. And maybe it's just something simple as there was a signature not there, or even a box wasn't ticked. Because remember, even at Swiss customs, the failure rate for that happening is about 20%. Now that's a large percentage, a very, very large percentage. So imagine that's now happened. That's now delayed this driver, not only just that driver, but other drivers as well. And now combine that with the potential rush hour traffic of Hull between the hours of 8 and 9 in the morning. If you live or work in Hull, your commute to work is about to become 1,000 times worse. 1,000 times worse. Oh dear. Oh, hang on, we've got a herd of cows coming in. Just to show you there. There we go. Anyway, someone did ask a question there. Hold on. Let me find it. Here we are, flash mood. So, could the UK end up losing Scotland and Northern Ireland in the long term? Yes. That is entirely possible. And to be honest, I think it'll happen. But even again, if I was Scottish, I wouldn't be voting for independence, but that's just me. Because even if we did achieve independence, it's not all green hills and light fields as it's going to be going forward for them. And you know, if they do vote for it, well, good luck to them. And like I say, if you would like to take the north of England with you as well, please do feel free to do so. Because that would benefit Scotland greatly. And of course, very, very likely that Northern Ireland will go as well. When it will happen, I don't know. I can't say. But it's not likely to happen anytime soon. And we're just going to wait and see. This is the bad thing about the whole thing. And when it comes to talking about Brexit, is really I've got nothing concrete to tell you about what happens next. It's all crystal ball gazing about possibilities, just like we explained with Hull there. Imagine how bad Hull is going to be affected on a day-to-day basis with just that level of disruption. What, Yorkshire isn't a country? How dare you? How dare you? I'll have thee know Yorkshire is a country. It's the best country there is. Ah, lad, I'll lass at take you down Kinnell and give you 6 at best. That's oh, that's my Yorkshireism for today. So it's incredibly hard to say about what happens next because there is no policy, and because of that, you've not been to Wales then. Wales? Who goes to Wales? Not even the Conservatives would go to Wales. But yeah, it's an interesting time for the UK, and like I say, we're just in this position of we just don't know what's going to happen, and the breakup of the union is entirely possibly on the cards. And like I say, we just don't know what's going to happen. Personally, I'd hope that if that did happen, that would spur on more of the idea for getting PR or the proportional representation into our parliamentary system. So, as many of you may know or may have heard, Corbyn was let back into Labour, and then Keir Starmer turned around and said, "I'm not letting you back in," which is a really, really dumb move. Because I've said this before, the left in the UK needs to be bigger than just one person. It needs to be a proper movement that's getting policy ideas put forward into the Labour manifesto. And we can do that if we are in Labour, if we're getting lefty MPs elected. Am I a DM or PC? I don't understand. I see I've started off the lively debate of Yorkshire versus Lancaster. It will be the left really needs to get its head around the fact that it needs to be more pragmatic, and that there's no point starting a second party, that we need to be a force in the Labour Party that is putting forward good and known and popular lefty ideas. And that is entirely possible with Momentum, because Momentum have done absolutely fantastic work at really galvanising a youth vote into Labour and getting people engaged in politics that Labour has never seen for years. So even after, if Corbyn is still not let back into the Labour Party, they have to continue that work. They have to continue to build the left in Labour. And one thing they need to push for is proportional representation. They need that at the next election. And they need to understand that the next election in 2024 probably is all about getting rid of the Tories, putting Labour into power, and getting proportional representation in that ballot vote so that we can have a proper referendum on it and get it through, get it passed, and get something done. Because that will then change British politics ultimately for the better, massively. And not just if we can't, get rid of, put PR into the House of Commons. It will be, can we change the House of Lords to a PR system? And maybe, the Commons is left as it is, but at least a PR, new reformed House of Lords will be also a change for British politics for the better as well. So, as always, it's just a matter of, you know, I've said it before and I'll keep on saying it again, for the left, it is better to have a foot in the door than 2 feet outside. We've got to be pragmatic. We've got to know when to back down and when to have a fight. And that's the issue that we have at the moment. We've got to decide whether it's really worth having a fight over Jeremy Corbyn. I don't think it is, because the left must be bigger than one person. Oh, sorry, it's all this wind. Oh, there we go. So the left has to be bigger than just one person, or else there's no point. We're just going to see this happen again and again over future, you know, lefty leaders. But there you go. I do hope that we can, you know, progress forward on this. I do hope that we can make a better left and that we can do this. It's possible to do it because we're doing it at the moment. But until that happens, you know, the left is going to have to be very picky about what fights it does and doesn't have. Morning. And you are right, someone just said there, MPs should have term limits. Absolutely. I think that would be a big change in politics as well, because you'd get constant refresh of new ideas and new people coming into the party. And I think that would help massively as well. So I do think that's something else that we need to really take an examination brush to. But here we are, as always, at the end of our walk. Ooh, and good news, because it does look like there are ponies. So for those of you who come for the ponies and not the politics, get ready. So we're going to have to wait and see. Oh, Conservator, thank you very much for the coffee. I will definitely get one. It's been a very cold day today. So before I leave you today with the ponies and say goodbye, please do remember to hit that like button. Say goodbye. Please do remember to hit that like button on your way out. It does help out the channel massively. And of course, if you would like to become my Patreon, there is a link down below to it. And of course, there is also a one-off donation link as well. Oh, in fact, we'll tell you what, we'll come here to this one. So, oh, there we go. So as always, we look forward to you. Oh, there's one come here to investigate as well. So as always, thank you very, very much for joining us. Oh, thank you, FSM. I'll definitely get a coffee. Thank you very much for that. Oh, I think he's having a nibble. So thank you very much for joining us, as always. Oh, thank you very much for someone donating there. Oh, It looks like the ponies are on the march. So thank you, as always, for joining us today. Please do remember to hit that like button on your way out. And have an absolutely fantastic weekend, as always. Remember, if you can't be safe, be sensible. Enjoy your weekend. Look out for the videos that we've got coming this week. Of course, potentially a deal on Tuesday, but I don't think it will happen given the COVID results of the EU negotiator that they've been put on hold. So we'll just have to wait and see. But of course, thank you very much, Johnny, for that. And of course, thank you very much for the people donating. It's absolutely fantastic to know that I have your support on this. Oh, we've got another one joining us here. Thank you very much for joining us, as always. What? He's trying to have a nibble at me. Thank you very much for joining us. And we'll see you all next time on another Good Morning Walk. Oh, hang on, when it finishes, I'm surrounded by ponies.